Broncos fans here or Colts fans because of Peyton Manning than they were Titans fans, just because. I mean, it's just funny. It's just whatever you get into. But
cool. Let's go ahead and kick this off.
Cool.
Ready? Let's do it.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Dave Kluge.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining for another episode of Dave's Weekend Warmup. We have had some fantastic guests over the last couple of weeks, and we're going to keep it going today with somebody that I am extremely excited about. 2 weeks ago, we had Ian Harditz with PFF. We had Mike Taglieri with Fantasy Pros. And this week, we have Joe Bryant with Football Guys. Joe, why don't you introduce yourself to anybody that doesn't know who you are, and let us know about some things that you got going on right now.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. This is fun, and hats off to you guys. You're crushing it early on, and I remember those days. That's fun when everything is in front of you, and it's challenging but fun too. That's awesome. Yeah, we new for us was 22 years ago. We started in late 99, 2000. So we've been doing this a long time, Football Guys, and it's just we've got a team of about 60 people. 8 full-time folks, and then a bunch of people that contribute other things for us. And we try to be, a pretty wide range. We, do everything from IDP to DFS to Dynasty to, keep a best ball auction, all that, and be the source for people playing fantasy football.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, normally anybody that watches this show knows that I am an analytical guy. And typically what we're doing is we're diving deep into numbers and analytics and trying to help you with your fantasy football roster. But today's show is going to be a little bit different. Having Joe Bryant on here, we're going to talk a bit about the business behind it and what it was like to start a website, how that's changed over the last, 21, 22 years. And then before we get into that, though, I got, everybody here knows Chase Vernon. But Chase, why don't you let everybody know what you got going on? I know we had a huge show yesterday that I'm sure you want to talk about just a little bit.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Last night or yesterday afternoon, we had Jason Moore on, which was absolutely amazing. One of my favorite podcasts I've ever done officially now. So very, very stoked to have Jason Moore on yesterday. You guys need to go to youtube.com/fantasy intervention. Once again, that's youtube.com/fantasy intervention. Make sure you guys check that out. And then following that, we had Ryan McDowell on, and Ryan was just fun. Like, we just had a blast, at night, like just sitting there and crushing the show with him. You guys need to go check that one out as well at youtube.com/fantasy intervention. Oh yeah, I'm going to drill it into y'all's heads.
You're making it rough on me, guys. Following Jason and Ryan, those are 2 rock stars there.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. A couple months ago, we were looking at some of these people, and I was like, man, I'd love to have somebody like that on my show. And now it's just been like nonstop. People want to join the circle, and it's been awesome to see grow. And Joe, I just want to let you know, first of all, how beloved you are in the community. When I put that tweet out this morning saying that I was going to have you, I've pumped up other people before saying, hey, I got Mike coming on, and I might get a message or two here, but my inbox exploded today when I said that you were coming on. I mean, people that have been playing this game for a long time know you. I mean, I feel like I know you better than you know me because I've been seeing your name in my inbox every single day for the last 5 or 6 years with that daily newsletter. So those of you that aren't familiar with Football Guys, it's a one-stop shop fantasy football website. They offer rankings, podcasts, draft kits, injury updates, anything else that you could possibly imagine. It's been endorsed by huge names like Matthew Berry and Adam Schefter. They burst onto the scene with a daily email newsletter and a message board, but they've just become a staple in the industry ever since. So we're going to start first by talking a little bit about Football Guys, what it was like to build a website from the ground up, We're going to ask Joe for some tips and tricks for some other aspiring entrepreneurs out there. And finally, it would be crazy not to talk about the Super Bowl, considering we're just a few days away.
Yeah, I hear there's a big game coming up or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I heard you got Tom Brady going against Patrick Mahomes.
Like
I think those guys are supposed to be pretty good.
Right.
Well, real quick, let me interrupt you real quick, Dave, because I just want to give a huge shout out to Joe. He's doing something wonderful for us and for the team. Once we end up hitting a certain amount of miles or a certain amount of followers on YouTube, I think we're going to set the goal at 500, at 750, and then, of course, 1K. Joe has actually decided to give our followers the premium all-pro package over there for Football Guys website, and I am stoked on that. Like, that is insane. That's something like, I mean, that's a $60 value out of season, right? You get $10 off if you get it right now, and then it's $70 in season. So go subscribe on our YouTube page, youtube.com/fantasyintervention, and win a chance to get a Football Guys premium package, their all-pro package. I'm stoked on that.
Yeah,
what all entails in that? What do you get with that, Joe?
That's everything we do. Guys, that's both DFS and the season-long stuff. So it's everything from draft kit all the way till Super Bowl. So it covers all of that.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll dive into that. We're going to talk about the League Dominator a little bit later on this show. But let's kind of get right off the bat here and dive in. As I mentioned, I became a fan of Football Guys years ago, before I ever even thought about being in the fantasy football industry, when I was just a consumer playing, all the time. I was on your email list and loved the content, and I still use your draft summary feature to this day. If anybody doesn't know, you just rate my fantasy football team. Football Guys has this awesome tool where they'll give you a full breakdown. But my first question, did you ever expect Football Guys to be this big when you started back in 1999?
That's one of those things that, I mean, no, I didn't. Well, let me say this. I hoped it would be that. This was the plan. I mean, it was, I was, probably not that different than you guys. I was, I had another busy job, and I had at that time, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and one not much longer after that. So, I mean, I didn't have a lot of extra time. So I knew it had to be something that was going to, hopefully grow to this. Now, you say, well, yeah, this is big now. And we've been super blessed and fortunate we're almost now to 500,000 subscribers on the list there. And but now I've also had 20 years to get there, 22 years. So it's like, that you got to look at the length of time we've been at this and adding it. So yeah, this was always sort of what we envisioned. And it just, the thing for me, I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. It's all I've ever done. I started in 1990. We co-founded a boat company manufacturing boats, Bryant Boats, and the internet to me, and we've done a little bit. So I'd always had the idea of, you buy raw materials and bring them in the loading dock and do your process, whatever you're doing to it, and ship a finished good out the other end. And if you want to double your revenue, you need to buy twice as much raw materials, or get a building bigger, or hire more people. And that was always just how, that was just everybody's DNA. And then the internet came along, and it was basically like a free printing press. It seemed like, it's like, wait a minute, I can service one customer or 1,000 customers, and it costs the same. And that light just went off, and it was like, wow, this feels like a Ponzi scheme or something. It's like, can this be real, that, you don't have to spend any more money to ideally generate more money? And so we went all in on that, and wound up, for a long time, I operated both businesses. We ran the boat company and Football Guys together. And then about 5 years ago, sold the boat company. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but yeah, as a long way to answer your question, I'd hoped it would be here, get to this point, and this was kind of the plan.
Well, that's awesome. 20 years ago, I don't even think people saw the internet being what it is today, but to have that foresight is just absolutely awesome. And one thing I've noticed about your site is that when it comes to your content creators, you don't really have a type. It seems like a lot of websites, some are all about film grinding, some are hardcore into the analytics, and you seem to have this really healthy mix of both. So when you're bringing in a new content creator, And I'm sure a lot of people right now that are listening to this are going to be wondering the same thing. What can somebody do to kind of set themselves apart and catch somebody's like your eye in the industry?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And if I've got it, and really that's mainly my job now. I mean, if I've got a superpower, I'm pretty good at discernment or whatever and picking. And I mean, I love our guys and our staff, and I think we've got a really great team there. But you're right, they're diverse, and I think it does. In part, I think the answer to that is our audience is pretty diverse, and we've got a pretty wide range of people that are looking for fantasy football information, and you have some that are you can do your customer avatars or whatever, but one of ours would be the super hardcore person that's in a dozen leagues, and he's a dynasty guy or a Debbie guy, and he's really he cannot get enough. He's a power user, and that person wants detailed analysis. He wants film breakdown, and he wants really diving deep. You got another person that might be a person that's in there, they just have a young family, or they've got busy job obligations, and they might have been that power user a few years ago. Well, now life has happened, and they've got other things pushing, and they don't have a lot of time anymore. So for them, they want us to curate. That's our job. It's like we're picking and condensing and giving almost like a need to know report. And so you really do focus on a couple of different things, and to attract a wider range, a wider audience, it takes different kind of content. So yeah, we've got some people, and it's funny, when I'll ask people, I'll meet someone and they'll say, "Oh, I love this, I love Matt Waldman, or I love Sigmund Bloom." And you can kind of tell they like the type. I mean, they
Right.
Lots of people, very few people read everything that we do. Most people have, certain features that they dig into, and it's just really what works for them.
Yeah, I personally am a Sigmund guy myself. I mean, I read his article.
Everybody's a Sigmund guy. Yeah,
he's fantastic. How can you not be?
Right.
What was it, Chase?
Obviously, it definitely has evolved, and fantasy has evolved as a whole, essentially over the past 20 years. But
right.
When you were starting your company, I think that's kind of right around the same time that Dynasty was starting to gain a little bit of traction. Mm-hmm. So did you start out just redraft, or were you diverse from the start?
Pretty diverse from the start. Yeah, it was a thing, Chase. When it's funny. I grew up like a lot of people playing rotisserie baseball. Before it really fantasy football was just, not even a thing. And that was by definition. I don't know how familiar you guys are with that, but I mean, there used to be like the official book. I mean, Daniel Okrent and those guys wrote a book every year, and it had all the rules, and it was very structured. I mean, there weren't very many people that got off the rules. I mean, you played AL only or NL only, and you used their scoring system and their auction value. And
you mailed in your
you mailed in. Yeah, you got to right.
I was there.
Yeah, you mailed in or got it by fax, and yeah, those are the old days. But so you had and then by definition, that in effect was dynasty somewhat, in that you carried contracts over and you got some of that. So that sort of started that way. And then when football started, it was much less structured. It was kind of, hey, some of these guys are going to do standard scoring, and some are going to do PPR, and some are going to do dynasty, and some are going to do redraft every year. And, DFS wasn't even a thing back then, but so the thing that was differentiating about football, it seemed, was there were a lot more different styles and different ways to play. And we figured out pretty early, it's always whatever you don't have is what everyone wants to talk about. If you do an app and you only do, Apple, then the Android guys yell. And so it's like the same way if you didn't have IDP or if you didn't have dynasty content, you get a lot of people asking. And the danger in that, and maybe as for you guys are thinking about, you have to be careful that you don't try to become all things to all people and wind up diluting the whole thing. So
that's great advice. And that actually that kind of sets up for my next question, because I was wondering, I mean, obviously fantasy football has changed drastically over the last 20 years, and especially probably over the last 5 or 6 is when we've seen the most change. So do you think that with all of these new styles of fantasy, keeper leagues, dynasty leagues, DFS, best ball, guillotine, playoff, I mean, you can just keep going. Has that made it harder for you to keep up, or do you think it's made it easier because you get so many more opportunities to create different types of content?
I think both, Dave. I mean, it's created opportunity for. I mean, we always think. I mean, like, this is our, and you guys have this, I know too. The challenge is, it's Sunday morning and 3 guys have scratched that you didn't plan on, and everybody's scrambling, and you were yelling, this is hard and this is a challenge, and I'm the guy's like, yeah, but that's why they need us. I mean, if everybody if every player performed exactly like you thought they would starting in May, you wouldn't need football guys. You wouldn't need intervention. I mean, it would be like, so that has, in a way, that's job for us. I mean, like, yes, somebody's got to react to this, and somebody's got to, handle this. And so, yeah, when we see Paul Charchian is a great friend at Guillotine Leagues, and that's a super fun way to play. And in effect, that's just like opportunity for us. We see that as like, hey, yes, that's a way, because it can get kind of stale. If all you did was redraft, it's just like, it's all the same. And so I love the new stuff. I mean, Scott Fish has been super. You guys know Scott maybe at doing. I mean,
Scott's in the chat right now.
Okay, hey Scott. But I mean, like he's been awesome about pushing new stuff, new score. I mean, now it's not so crazy, but Superflex or first down scoring or those kind of things. And so I love it. I mean, it just makes it, more fun, more interesting. And I always tell people, I mean, and that's sort of been our thing at Football Guys, is more of a personalization. We're able to cater our projections and our advice based on what you tell us about your league. As you guys know, it makes a ton of difference. I mean, a quarterback value in a 10-team, 1 QB league versus a 14-team Superflex league. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, like Matthew Stafford can be, or Jared Goff. I liked your I'm with you, I think, Chase, on Goff, but I like, that makes a ton of difference. So you say, well, how good is, where should Goff be drafted? So you got to tell me about your league before I can tell you where Goff ought to be drafted. And so when people have weird scoring, to me, that's a huge edge. I mean, the hardest league for a sharp player to play in is a league that's super standard, and then you get anybody can walk in and do pretty good. I mean, I think if you're a sharp player, you like weird scoring and weird rules and whatever, because that plays to your expertise.
Yep.
But yeah, so we like that.
I've been slowly adding these caveats into my home league every single year, and I feel like it just makes it more advantageous for me because I understand it. So absolutely. I mean, the game has changed so much over the last few years, but it's fun. Before I was creating content, I was just your normal redraft every single year with the same group of guys. And then once you start finding out about Superflex and Dynasty, and you see this whole other world of fantasy football, it makes it so much more fun, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I do have a thought too back on what you said. The first other question about what kind of people we're looking for, and this is, again, you guys don't need advice. Obviously, you're crushing it, but I would say what's worked for us is like, first and foremost, we've tried to gather good people around us. I don't care how smart you are and all that. If you're not someone I want to hang out with, it's not going to work. And now, not to say there's a lot of that works for other sites maybe, and they have a different flavor, a different edge, or whatever. But that's been, my opinion of it is, it's hard enough doing this stuff, and I mean it's a fun topic, but it can be work, and so if it's going to be work, let's do it with people I like working with, and so that was kind of our first thing, and just surround yourself with good people, and that, the rest comes.
I think that's exactly what we're doing right now. Chase, would you say that we have a type over at Fantasy Intervention? I don't think so.
We should just add Joe to the group chat for like 24 hours. I mean, he'll probably leave after like 15 minutes because he'll be 600 messages deep. But I mean,
I think a lot of this has to do with, it being this, during COVID. I think a lot of people are isolated, but the way that this Fantasy Intervention team has just bonded over the last couple of months, it's a sight to see. I mean, these are awesome people that I consider genuine friends of mine. It's been a lot of fun watching this grow over the last few months. Absolutely. Real quick, Steph does bring up a good point, Joe. The way that we're actually building this company is by helping individual people that are part of our I guess, umbrella, essentially. We're building up their brands, and in turn, it will help us grow and build. But essentially, we're just giving them a platform to be able to produce whatever kind of content they want, as long as it's
good content. Obviously, we don't want to put up, some junk, but we're letting them build their brand underneath our umbrella. And that's kind of the whole atmosphere that I wanted to create when I had this mindset for this company. And it's something as to where, so far it's been working. So I'm excited to get to the next level.
Yeah, everybody has their own brand pretty much, and we're just kind of helping each other get to that next level. It's really, really fun to be a part of. So we mentioned at the beginning of the show that you're going to be giving us, a few giveaways. All right, so we got Troy here saying do not go in the group chat. Troy still hasn't recovered, but yeah, it is definitely an awesome part of being a part of this circle. So we mentioned the giveaways. We've got 3 of these packages that we get to offer. So a lot of the features that you offer, and some people would argue are some of your best features, are free. You get to go and you get to rate your team after a draft, snap counts, red zone looks, target counts, defensive game logs. I mean, those are when I'm putting my show sheets and articles together, I'm spending about 80% of my time on Football Guys, with that great free content that you offer. So what's your quick pitch as to why somebody who's already using the free Football Guys content should upgrade to a paid membership? We'll give you a little bit of platform here to sell your site.
Thank you, buddy. And that is the $1 million question, right? Of like how much free, where is that line? And we knew early on that, it's kind of 2 ways to build an internet business. Now you have a subscription model, like magazines, and that's nothing new. Magazines have been doing that for, ever. Or you have completely free and work off of advertising, and you try to make your money with ads. I never felt comfortable depending on ads. I just didn't want our income stream to be dependent on marketing executives at Coca-Cola somewhere. And I wanted it to be dependent on a closer, what do you want, direct to consumer, however you want to call it, relationship with that customer. If we're doing good content, they're going to pay us money and subscribe. And so we do some ads, but it's more icing on the cake than it is any type of thing we depend on. So when you do that, then you've got to figure out, okay, where is that tipping point? How much do you give away for free? And then what do you charge for? If you give away too much for free, there was like, well, why would I buy that? And then you don't give enough away for free. Everyone hates you. It's like, they only give this tiny little sliver away, and no one, you don't have enough, or they don't see enough. Sometimes the free content is a lot like a free trial. They want to try this out and decide whether they trust you or not. So we don't know. We have 20 plus years into this. I'm not going to say we have it right, but it's worked pretty well. Ours, a lot of it's time dependent. We'll give a lot more free away earlier in the year, and as the season interest ramps up and the more people get involved, more and more things start going behind the paywall. But things like the email update, that stays free year round. That's been our connection, our staying in front of their face each day and being reminded that we're still here. So that's always been free. So it's a balance, but again, a long way of answering your question. Probably the biggest thing is personalization. If you really want me to, we'll give a ranking set here, but if you want to know what we think about your super flex 14 team, league with 3 wide receivers, you need to pay and get behind that. Stuff's more behind the paywall. But it's constant. We're constantly arguing and fighting over what we should give away and what we should hold back. And so, of course, all the customers think we give away too much. Once you've bought, you're like, hey, I don't want my buddies getting it. Yep. And here's the other. You guys will hit this soon. You get to a point where you're everybody's secret weapon. Nobody wants to share it. It's a point where it's like, if I had a nickel for every time somebody said, man, I love you guys, but I would never tell anybody about you. I'm like, thank you. In a way, that's a compliment. And we learned that. We did T-shirts one year. We printed all these T-shirts, great price, had a cool design on it. And I'm thinking, we got all these subscribers, and I'm going to sell a ton of these. And we sold 20 of them. Nobody would buy one. And I'm like, how can we have, all this subscribers, these many people subscribing and nobody will buy a T-shirt? And I started asking, dude, I'm not wearing that to my draft. I'm not going to tell anybody about Football Guys. I'm like, thank you, but you're killing me here.
God,
And
come on, help me out. Word of mouth.
That's right. That's right. So, and
No,
you think about it, very few things are that way. I mean, a restaurant or a cool website or a band. I mean, you want to be cool. I mean, you get street cred for sharing and being the first person to turn your friends on to this site. About the only other thing like us and what you guys are doing, it'd be like a sweepstakes. If you found a great sweepstakes, you're not telling anybody. You hope nobody else enters the drawing.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a challenge.
That's a funny way to put it. Yeah, you don't think about that if you're putting out really good content, people aren't going to want to share it. That's a hurdle that I haven't even really thought of yet, but it's definitely something interesting.
You guys got all kinds of fun things to look forward to.
I can't wait for that one. I can't wait for that one.
Right.
No, but sitting there and looking at it, I was sitting there, I was writing like 4 articles a week and I was pumping out content. I do about 20 different sites for every article that I write. Normally it takes me about 8 to 10 hours to write an article. Well, 6 to 10 hours to write an article in most cases. And when I had to bring on this team and I had to tell everybody where to get all the information from and where I get all my sources from, that was one of the toughest things I've ever had to do. So I can only imagine, what these people that are getting the golden nuggets sent to them,
you're right,
are trying to hide from. But
they don't want to share with anybody.
How long did it take you to monetize, or to decide that you wanted to monetize?
Yeah, we knew from the plan from day one was to monetize, but we knew you couldn't do it day one. I mean, it was like you don't have a thing, and it took us to year 3. We went 2 years and made $0 and just sweated it, and I mean, like most people is, and that's actually a funny story too. If you want to hear it, is like we knew, the $1 million question is, okay, you've got X number of free subscribers. How many of those will pay? And I mean, Google probably asks that every day. How many people would pay for Gmail, or how many people would pay for, lots of things. And at that time we had 30,000 subscribers on the free mailing list. And we thought, okay, I mean, I said, I've got to find out. I've got to know at some point. I'm like, I'm going to get divorced, or I'm going to, something's going to happen if we don't at least know how much money we're going to make on this, and if we have a real business or not. And so we did this big thing. We announced there was a big thing coming, and here's it was our big, and I was scared to death. And the question I asked everybody I knew, how many people you think will buy? And we had everything from 5 to 10% was what most people thought. And I'm like, because you don't know. I mean, it's such a new thing. Even now, it's a new model. And I mean, when you send out a direct mail campaign, people that have been doing that for 50 years, real mail, they'll tell you that you can expect X% in this zip code almost every time for lawn care, because they've done it for 50 years. Internet stuff's new. So we rolled out, the paywall went up with 30,000 subscribers. And I thought, will we get 5%? Will we get 1%? Will we get whatever? And the first week, 15,000 of the 30,000 said they would pay.
Wow.
And so it was like, all right, well then that'll work then. And now of the 500,000, now we don't have 50% anymore that will pay, but it's, that number has gone down. But early on, that was our monetization story, that half of our free subscribers signed up to pay.
Congratulations.
I just took it as a huge,
incredible.
Yeah, that was a huge blessing and I, now in 2021, I doubt that would happen again. It was different back then, but it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be great seeing that, instant sort of, tangible result when you're, because I'm sure you were sweating that out, just hoping that people would sign up. So, I mean, that's why you're still here today, all this time later. It's awesome to see.
I'm a barbecue nerd, and I was at a barbecue school thing one time, and the guy was talking about, he asked, how many guys thinking about going to a restaurant? And like half the people, raise their hand and says, let me guess, I'm guessing y'all are serving barbecue right now, and everybody you serve it to says it's the best they've ever had, right? And he's like, yeah, he goes, and I'm guessing that the price you guys are charging usually is probably $0, right? And everybody's like, yeah. And he goes, you charge $10 a plate for that and see how many people like it. And and that was and that's some truth to that. It's like, cool. it was pretty, so it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially with how competitive and some could even say oversaturated this industry is, a lot of people think that they're just going to be able to start a website up and money is just going to start rolling in. And that is not the case. And, I think luckily Chase and I, we knew that from the get-go. We said, this is going to be a lot of work and monetization takes a while. And that's something that we are, very understanding, but I don't think everybody has that same idea. They think that this is just untapped, that you're just going to start a fantasy football website and people are just going to start mailing you checks.
Yeah, right.
Or
That's
to
not how it
start a
works.
podcast. I didn't realize when I started a fantasy football podcast that I was going to end up being like a website expert, an editing expert. Like, I mean, just job after job after job. Jake Trowbridge over there at Down to Talk Fantasy Football put up a post, and I'm like, I've never felt something more in my heart than I just felt with that post. Like,
you thought the checks would start rolling in like they do for PewDiePie, right?
Well, it's just so much more. Like, you have to become an expert of so much more than just talking football.
Right.
And even when I started, when Chase brought me on to Fantasy Intervention, I said, you know what, I'm going to be a content guy. That's what I was kind of pigeonholed in. Now, a few months later, I'm learning how to edit videos. I'm learning how to work in WordPress and help building the website and doing shipping. And, it's just, you gotta wear a lot of hats if you want to make it in this industry. Absolutely. So one thing that your website offers a lot of are tools specific to leagues. We've talked about that a little bit. And that's a really great way to differentiate yourself from the competition. So of all the tools that you guys offer, what would you say your favorite one is?
That's like asking to pick your favorite kid or something.
Do you have somebody in charge of each one?
Yes.
So you pretty much are picking your favorite kid, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And although, some are overseen by, the same people, but I guess honestly, it is time of year. I mean, our draft dominator is something, and we've actually got, our original tool, the Draft Dominator Classic, is more of an old school, a program you actually download. And then our current Draft Dominator is an mobile app, and then also online, and virtually the same experience. That's fantastic. So I love that, being able to plug in your, give it some inputs, and then it gives you back customized advice. But then we also have, that also pumps out a cheat sheet for the folks that just like the old school, print out a big cheat sheet and the highlighter. And if you're into that, so it does the same, the thing that I kind of, got into this with was value-based drafting and writing about that, and all those principles that drives all of it. So it's all, it's all that is woven in through all that. And then that's the draft time. And then the League Dominator is virtually the same idea of, once the hassle, and we'll go with this too about solving problems, and I'll get back to that in a second. But the trouble everyone has, if you play in more than a couple of leagues, it's hard sometimes to manage. You forget, is this rookie burst on the scene, or somebody gets hurt and this, player's on the free agent wire, and do you pick him up, and is he taken in this league, but he's not taken in that league? And it can kind of get, some work. With our League Dominator, you can super easily see who's available, what league, where they go, and how it all works. Like waiver wire, you guys are probably feeling this pain in what you do already, but writing a waiver wire article is the hardest article to write, because your audience is so diverse out there. If you put a guy that's well known, and then you'll instantly get feedback. Go, I wish I could play in that league where that guy didn't get drafted. That guy got drafted in the 8th round in my league, a real league. And then, or you have the problem of you're talking about, more an obscure player that you think should be on the wire, but then you don't talk about the better player that actually is in that person's league too, that they should be picking up. And so it was almost an impossible article to write. With League Dominator, you can write that article, and it'll highlight the people, the players that Sig's talking about in your league, boom, right in front of you. So it'll also pull up players that maybe Sig didn't even write about. That'll show, here's our rest of season rankings. These are the free agents available in your league, and this is who we would draft if our thing is over the shoulder. We want to be their over the shoulder coach. If Sigmund was hanging out with you and could look over your shoulder and say, I would pick up that guy, that's what we want to try to recreate for our customers.
So really just kind of customizing those articles that you write specifically to the person that's reading the article.
Right. It makes it more relevant, right? Yeah. And then the Rate My Team is super fun. I mean, that one is not so much a tool as it is just fun. And the fun thing about that is is, if you guys don't, I mean, you give us, well, that was fun actually in creating. I'm rambling about random stuff, I know, but our guy Doug Drennan, Doug's one of our best friends and a key guy, football guys from the get. And Doug's a math professor. I mean, Doug's one of the smartest guys I know, but he's a math guy. And I'm telling him what I want. I want to be able to have input and create almost like what's that, a Mad Libs thing, where you say, I'd like to have a set thing, and like you can almost like create this thing based through database pulls. We're already writing these things about all these players. Could we create an article based on what they give us, without it sounding like, an auto-generated, operator voice thing? And Doug's like, yeah, I can do that. And I'm thinking that's like a linguistics guy or a machine learning AI type project, not a math professor. And about 2 weeks later, Doug sends me this thing, and you plug in the guys, and here's an 8-page report instantly. Yeah. And it's super fun. And that creates probably more email for me than anything. It's always the guy that we, you don't want to crush. Well, we also knew if we don't have it real, somebody will put in a stupid team and say we think they still might make the playoffs, and we get laughed at on Twitter. So you have to be real, but you also have to be careful about, you don't want to just crush a guy's team if so you sort of have to be a little bit honest, or you have to be definitely be honest, but a little bit nice. But every year, week 15, I get people that'll forward me my rate my team report that gave them a low chance of making the playoffs, and they've won their league, and throwing it at me, and I'm like, hey, good for you, buddy. That's what I like to see. They cared about it all year. They kept it and saved it, and wanted to throw it.
Well, that's the thing. Nobody's projections are perfect. If somebody drafted Robert Tonyan in their draft and then put that in, it's not going to say that they have a good chance, but sure enough, he was enough to do it this year. And that's the way it is. People love coming back and rub it in your face. But it's funny that you mentioned that tool specifically. My buddies and I, we've got the trophy sitting right back here as I'm the reigning champ, but we've had this league going for 11 years. And as soon as the draft is done, we get together in person, everybody does the draft, that last round ends, and then you see everybody pull their phones out straight to football guys, and they want to see, let's see, Joe's giving me the best chance to win this year. And that's kind of our we pretty crown the champion 5 minutes after the draft every single year. But yeah, you guys have done a great job. I mean, that reads like somebody really wrote an article specifically for you. It's just kind of mind-blowing to read. You guys do such a good job with that.
We've talked that at one point I toyed, it comes out instantly, but I've said, we should like give a 24-hour delay on this, and people would legit think someone wrote it, maybe, and
absolutely,
but no, we give it right off. But yeah, that's a fun tool.
Yeah, you guys crush it. I mean, that's definitely the favorite tool that I offer, or that you offer, and I love it. So something else I want to ask about. I mentioned the big name endorsements that you had earlier on. The big ones that you see right when you get on the website. Matthew Berry and Adam Schefter have resounding compliments for football guys. So did those endorsements come after you made it, or did they help kind of propel you into that? What came first, the chicken or the egg? The endorsements or the big site?
Yeah, I think they've both been a while. I mean, we've had both of those for a good long while. So it was probably middle, I mean, Matthew and I have been friends a long time, since, talented Mr. Roto days. So yeah, I don't think they didn't really push it. And those are tricky things too, right? I mean, endorsements or testimonials or whatever you want, I think you can be overdone. I think you can get too much of it, and it's just like you're trying a little too hard. When the guys are like, you never trust the guy that tells you how nice he is, right? So yeah, I think those are sort of chicken and egg things, and they're both those guys are super kind, and we're super grateful for that. It made me think of that too. Like the nicest guy in the world is Scott Van Pelt, longtime football guy. So in fact, I need to get him up there. He sent me I got this email a couple years ago, and it says Scott, I forget, it's SVP something. And I texted Barry. I said, is he punking me? Is this guy really Van Pelt? And it turned out he's a Maryland fan. It was Terp something in the email. And nicest guy in the world, like legit, just incredibly nice guy.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't even imagine the connections that you've been able to make over your time there. And for what it's worth, you've got a ringing endorsement from Dave Kluge as well, if you want to throw that up on the website.
Well, I mean, that matters a lot, guys. That's the thing. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, that to me has been the most fun thing of just, folks in the industry are so nice to us like y'all are. And that's super gratifying for us. So thank y'all for that.
We actually pretty much had to create this show for you, Joe. Like we have to, because of the fact that we're sitting there and Dave's like, man, I got Joe Bright. Like, I think I can get him on. Like, I really love this guy. Like, I just want to talk about him. And he just goes on and on and on. I'm like, Dave, like, he doesn't really fit our Wednesday shows. We like to drink, like to cuss. We like to talk. Like,
yeah, you need Jason there, Ryan, so not me.
I'm sitting there and I was like, but I really want to do this. And I've actually been thinking about starting up a show where we talk about building podcasts and how we started from the ground up and how and literally tell everybody our story from week to week and how we're continuing to improve from week to week and literally just build it out from there. And I was like, you know what? We should look into Fridays and open it up Fridays and do it a show then. And then all of a sudden you can make it on Fridays. So we're doing Thursdays, but it was essentially because of you, because, we did have this concept and honestly, like we took it and ran with it and it's been even more impressive than I thought it was going to be. So,
well, thank you, buddy. That's kind. And there are people interested in that. I get it. I mean, I'm not talking about this to anybody on public yet, but I mean, I'm actually thinking that's probably maybe my next thing is, I don't have a name for it yet, but talking about starting an internet business. I mean, not specifically about football anymore. I mean, you guys get this too, but I get it, a lot of like, hey, I want to do what you're doing. I'm super into comic books. I'm super into, whatever, RVs or plants or fishing or any of these things. And I don't really like my regular job. And can I make a living doing this? Can I do with, comic books, what you're doing with football, Joe? And I think you absolutely can. And so I think that's probably and I'm as passionate about that as I am football. So yeah, maybe we'll have to get together and talk about that or something.
Stay in touch.
But I think there's a lot broader audience. Like fantasy football is a huge market, right? But I mean, so is
saturated.
Yeah, so is people that want to monetize their hobby. That's a pretty big market too. And so I'm pretty excited about that. So that may be the next thing from me.
That is a perfect setup for my next question. We're going to get into some Super Bowl talk after this, but the last question I have, regarding the business, for anybody that's watching the show right now and looking to start a website specifically in the fantasy football industry, what's just the best piece of advice that you'd be able to give somebody?
And that's a hard one. I would say, it's crowded, right? I mean, newsflash, it's crowded. I mean, that's we were laughing yesterday. Sigmund and Cecil at our podcast had their 4,000th episode. Can you believe that? This on Wednesday, and that's amazing. And we talked about when I was in college, and this I'll date myself here. In 1988, I got a job as the college DJ for Texas A&M radio, and at the 2 a.m. slot on like Tuesday night, and I would lug a box of a milk crate of albums across campus. And I thought I was the luckiest guy in the world. And I was the envy of all my friends that I had a radio show. And the reality was I was lucky. I mean, like who else? I mean, but you tell my kids now, said, hey, you can share a playlist with your friends and they were like, big deal. I can do that in 2 seconds on my phone. And so the game has changed dramatically about lowering barriers to entry, which is great. I mean, it's great for the consumer. It's never been, but I always say that the good news is barriers to entry are low and everyone can do it. The bad news is barriers to entry are low and everyone can do it. So you've got to claw and fight and get your space out there. So my advice would be, you got to understand it's crowded. You got to understand how you can bring value to that customer. And that's what the ultimate answer is. I think it's value and what problems are you solving? When I said alluded to problem solving. So I have people all the time pitch this idea and it'll be something that's super cool or beautiful or impressive on this. And then my first question, everybody at Football Guys knows that I'm going to ask them this is like, what problem are you solving? What's the problem it's doing? And then a lot of times they go, well, really solve a problem, but it looks cool and it and it's pretty. Like that doesn't have a lot of value outside of, I mean, I get it. I mean, congratulations, you made something cool and pretty, but it's like, what problem does it solve? Because people are looking to solve problems. They want something. They want, to know the free agents available in their league that Sigmund likes. I mean, they want to know who to draft and how Jared Goff ranks differently in a super flex 14 than a, 10 team, one quarterback league. Those are the problems that people have. So I would say, advice would be find out the problems you're solving and become that person that can solve that problem. Bring value, and the money will come. There's not a ton of money in this. I mean, it's like there's so much people doing it. You got to love doing it, but if you focus on the money, you're probably never going to get there. If you focus on the work and giving value, there's a whole lot better chance that money will come.
That is fantastic advice. Yeah, I have a feeling a lot of people that are in similar positions as Chase and I are going to be rewatching this and taking notes. I mean, the value that you provided by coming on the show and helping answer some of these questions is just invaluable. So I thank you for that. But like I said, it would be crazy not to talk about the Super Bowl because we are just 3 days out. So thank you so much for
Scott Fish sits there and says, "I could listen to these all day." Cover the Super Bowl.
I mean, Scott's the man.
Yeah, Scott is awesome. Hey, Scott, I know you're on the show, so if you get my application this year for the Scott Fish Bowl, I'm hoping for it. But let's go ahead and jump in real quickly here. So, obviously we got so many big names in the Super Bowl this year. Mahomes, Brady, Kelsey, Hill, Evans, all of these guys. Who are you expecting to have a big game, though, outside of those big names? Offense or defense? Who's the one lesser guy that you expect to step up? Because it seems like every year there's at least one.
Yeah. Dave, and we don't make – I intentionally don't make a ton of predictions. I mean, we basically predict every player when we do our rankings and, projections in the summer. And I hate it when you see these sites and they'll pull out their 5, players they got right, and they conveniently forget all the misses they had, So I don't tout a lot of that stuff. But the one thing we did when we asked all of our staff folks to do we call it plant your flag. I mean, who are you going to ride or die with on your predictions for this year? And mine was Tampa Bay to the Super Bowl. I didn't say they'd win, but I said Tampa Bay to the Super Bowl and Tom Brady to excel. And I was a little nervous early, but it wasn't hard. Brady and Tampa was, it went exactly like, and not just me. A lot of people predicted this kind of thing. He went from having, Julian Edelman being his best receiver to, I'm not sure Edelman could make the roster in Tampa. It's like, right. So you go to that. And I mean, when Gronkowski's not even your best tight end you're throwing to, is like, so he got a wealth of weapons, and you knew with COVID and the training camp situations and all that, it might be a little rocky at first, but he's done, exactly like you would hope he would do, or I hoped he would do. And a lot of people did. So I think Tampa's going to win. And I think Brady's going to have a big game. I think he's the MVP. Now I think that the key to that, though, obviously you can't watch. You can't watch the Kansas City and not just be in awe of their talent and their explosiveness. I think it's going to be the Tampa Bay defense, and maybe specifically the linebackers. If they can be physical early on, and you saw a little bit of that in the Green Bay game. They were a little chippy and a little. I wouldn't be a bit unhappy. Not unhappy. You don't want to see a cheap shot, but I wouldn't mind seeing a flag being a little rough early on and trying to set a tone and just like, hey, we're here to push you guys around some. And if they can do that and disrupt, I think they got a chance. It could get, although I would not be a bit surprised, if Kansas City blows them out. This could be an ugly game, right, if things don't go right for Tampa.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how the Chiefs' offensive line ends up lining up, because their offensive line, their 2 tackles are hurt. Remmers is going to be starting left tackle, I believe. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out, because they racked up 5 sacks. 5 sacks up against Aaron Rodgers last week.
Right.
Yeah. If this team comes in and it's physical, it's going to be game.
Right.
And you already said it, Joe, and I said it yesterday on our show with Jason Moore. But yeah, I mean, both of these offenses are elite. You know, you might give the slight edge to Kansas City, but when you're
Right.
looking at the defenses, Tampa Bay just has such a huge advantage there. So my preseason pick was Chiefs over Bucks in the Super Bowl, but
Really?
I'm catching some
You
flack
picked
for it. But
that?
I did, and now I'm
Nice.
backtracking on it. You know, just and I got to go on the Bucks. It's really hard to bet against them, watching the way that they've played so far in the playoffs. I mean, they're just an unbelievable team, and I'm really excited for Sunday.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against Brady. I mean, it's just, and I mean, people, I mean, you know, Mahomes is incredible talent. I mean, he's a freak of physical. I mean, he just does stuff that's just weird, you know, and you can't coach it. Brady, I mean, I think a lot of people like Brady for that reason. He's just like, and he's not, you know, I mean, he's a better athlete, I think, than a lot of people give him credit for, but he's not, there's nothing freakish about his athleticism. And he just grinds and he prepares and he puts the work in and he just, you know, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's not, I mean, I don't think we can I think because we've got so used to it that people just don't realize what we're watching and what we're seeing here. But this is crazy what he's doing.
I couldn't agree more. Chase, did we get your pick yesterday? I know we talked about this on the show a little bit, but you were hosting. Did we get your Super Bowl pick yet?
Yeah, I have the Chiefs 31, the Buccaneers 28. You know, I'm getting a little bit nervous, but I think that this game is going to be as high flying as what people are expecting. I still think it's going to be high scoring.
Yeah.
I mean, sitting there and looking at it, 49 over under, right? Or 59? Wait. Yeah. So sitting there and looking at it, 59 over under, it's still going to be high scoring. But I mean, I'm seeing people put up like, you know, 30, 38 to, what do you say, Dave? Like 38, 35 or something?
37-31 was mine.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to get that high up. Like, I still think it's probably going to hit the over, but I don't know about how much of an over it's going to hit.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it officially becomes the off season for us in just a few days here. So we'll start looking forward to 2021 and some projections and rankings and fully dive into Dynasty and won't have to make these, you know, projections out of thin air as of Sunday. Well, Joe, I want to thank you again so much for coming on. I also wanted to remind everybody, you know, Joe surprised us with this right before the show, so we still have to figure out exactly how we are going to give these out. But Joe did provide us with 3 2021 Football Guys All-Pro Premium subscriptions. So we will definitely find some sort of giveaways for our viewers, our subscribers, and our readers. I also want to plug our YouTube page, youtube.com/fantasyintervention. I talk about these almost every single Friday, but we have a guy on our team, DJ, who's been pumping out these taste testers that are hilarious. We've also got a new channel that we're working on right now called Bar Fights, where we have 2 people that are giving conflicting views at the same time. And then we just dropped our first IDP content today as well. Jordan Rains, he dropped a quick shot on Jabril Peppers. So we're really starting to just, you know, widen it out a little bit on the YouTube page. So be sure to check that out and subscribe. Also wanted to plug in an article that I just dropped, Zero Wide Receiver Drafting. I've dropped 2 in the last week, one about why it's my preferred method. And then I did another one where I go through round by round kind of players to target in each round. So whether you're new to Zero Wide Receiver Drafting or you want to get an idea of what it's going to be like in 2021, be sure to check that out. Thank you, Chase, for co-hosting today. Is there anything specifically you wanted to talk about, Chase?
No, you just got to go check out the team. Go to fantasyintervention.com and then go to meet your support group, and you're going to see our whole team there. It's like 30 people right now that are just crushing it. It's going to have all their articles. Like Troy, for example, has his podcast up on his page. It's bios for each person to be able to, you know, kind of show off what they're doing around the community. And it's absolutely amazing. So go check it out, fantasyintervention.com. Make sure you go to meet your support group.
And then, you know, since we're talking about new guys, I'll be back on tomorrow, same time, Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and I'm going to be joined with 2 of our newer gentlemen. I'm going to have Jordan and Evan on here. So if you want to see some of the new faces on the Fantasy Intervention team, really excited to get them some airtime. So be sure to come back on tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then next week, I'll be joined at the same time with Steffi Smalls and Troy King, as we're going to be hosting Peter Howard. So just bringing you content nonstop. But thanks again, Joe, for joining us. This was an absolute blast. This was, you know, one of my favorite shows that I've ever been on. It was awesome getting to pick your brain. I mean, just never thought that I'd be sitting here chopping it up with you. It was an awesome experience.
Thank you for having me, guys. Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night.
Tuning in. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, and thanks for letting me intervene in your fantasy life. We're out.